We're always experimenting with new frequencies here at Hemi-Sync, and I'm usually the main guinea pig. Typically, we'll identify some things we want to test, produce a demo track, and hook the test subject up to EEG, blood volume pulse, and skin temp sensors. Then they go into the sound booth, which is blackout curtains, a really nice zero-gravity chair, studio reference headphones, and a mic. It's basically a sensory deprivation chamber with some added technology installed. Recently, we were doing some experimental work with a carrier package known as Focus 27, and some derivations thereof, when I started to have this recurring experience. Or rather, it was a mostly recurring experience that had slightly different elements and experiential qualities each time I went into the booth. The experience itself can be described as part OB technique, part shamanic journey, and part Eastern mysticism, in the sense that it invites you, the listener, to explore the experience of union and non-duality, as well as your own individuated experience, far from your familiar sense of self. As I returned to this locale, it became clear to me that this was something I could share, and so I got to work with the production team here at Hemi-Sync on doing just that. Midnight Sun is the culmination of our collective efforts. Now, unlike a lot of other providers of audio guidance technology, we never publicly release carrier packages that are not fully tested and vetted. The bar to create something that is better than Robert Monroe's original carriers is very high. While we have made some very narrow modifications to those carriers, what are popularly known as the focus levels, they were minor, and in areas where the effects were well understood and fully tested. As a result, we still have never really released any audio guidance tech that isn't Bob Monroe's. I'm afraid this exercise is no different. The experimental carriers I was using are not on this track. We just didn't feel like they were ready for prime time, as we've only tested them on me and a couple other people. That's not a large enough sample size. And we didn't want to hold this project up while we ran experiments on a couple dozen other people. Midnight Sun is done in Focus 27 though, and I think it does the job quite well. Now, this is an advanced exercise, and I wouldn't recommend it as your first foray into Hemi-Sync. Around the 5-minute mark, you will be asked to perform an OBE technique, which is to simply roll out of your body to your right side. You'll then be prompted to move through a wall to the outside, to the exterior. We fully appreciate that this is a big ask in any exercise, but especially 5 minutes into it. That's why I'm saying it's advanced. Please understand that it is not critical for this phase of the exercise to go exactly as you might want. It doesn't have to be a classical OBE where you have the vibrational state followed by full separation of your energy body. Regardless of how it goes, just project your consciousness outside when the narration gets to that point. Just put your consciousness there and leave whatever preceded it behind. Move on, letting the guidance and frequencies carry you. If you feel that you need more time for this step or any of the other steps, practice it using the free flow track which comes with this album. Next, you'll be invited to proceed to the nearest road, which is really just a metaphor for any nearby conduit of energy. It could be a stream or river, but not everyone has that nearby, whereas most folks do have a road close to wherever they may be. This makes it easier for your critical, analytical mind, which may not be fully at rest at this point, to accept. You'll then go through a period where you continue to work with your own energy, allowing it to flow naturally, then manipulating it into a falling sensation before being guided into a peak experience. During this phase, you'll be guided to raise your vibrational frequency more and more. For some context, Midnight Sun is what many traditions would characterize as a realization or enlightenment experience. In fact, some traditions go so far as to hold non-dual experience as the ultimate end state, the culmination of the journey. In considering any description or characterization of non-ordinary experience, I would offer that they may or may not be valid, and even if they are valid, they may only hold true from a particular vantage point. On what can be called the journey of ascent, it can feel like we're opening up to ever deeper aspects of ourselves, transcending our familiar sense of self or egohood, until it culminates, it builds, in an experience similar to what is depicted in Midnight Sun, a peak experience. This might happen many times. I want to caution you here that an enlightenment or realization type experience, like Midnight Sun, is hardly ever permanent. It is normal and natural to return to ordinary reality. Moreover, it is common for the familiar sense of self to appropriate these peak experiences. So when one is claiming to be enlightened or realized, who is really saying that? Integrating realized experience into your daily living is what can be termed the journey of descent. Here, there is not necessarily anywhere you have to go or even anything you need to do. In that sense, it may feel less like a journey and more like a process. Daily living, on the one hand, could be described as mundane, but there are subtle differences. A sense of quiet spaciousness and peace pervades the ordinary. The familiar inner voice or narrator who is constantly evaluating your experience and attempting to meddle with it is noticeably absent or appears much less frequently. As a result, it's like there's nobody even here much of the time. To make this condition your ordinary, lived experience generally requires a significant reordering of your life. For me personally, I've had to make many hard choices or surrender to changed circumstances involving my profession, social circle, family, finances, health, over several years. These days, I don't generally do things or make decisions that disturb my peace. I'm not always successful in that regard. There are still experiences I'm presented with that trigger me. My inner narrator returns, and these are usually indications that I still have work to do in a particular area. While Midnight Sun doesn't directly address this phase of work, the seated meditation session at the end does provide opportunity for integration, a bridge between peak experience and everyday living. So I hope this context is helpful. Of course, I would never ask you to take anything I or anyone else says at face value. Take it or leave it, and find out for yourself.